It's about that time.
City Views, City Views.
What's happening in your city?
City Views, City Views. City Views, City Views.
You got love for your city?
City Views, City Views.
City Views.
City Views.
City Views.
Oh, City Views, City Views. City Views.
City Views.
Oh, City Views, City Views.
City Views. City Views.
Oh, City Views,
City Views. City Views. City Views.
oh, City Views,
City Views.
City Views.
City Views. City Views.
Oh, City Views,
City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views. City Views. And good evening. Welcome to another episode of City Views, your weekly television broadcast covering all the events, activities, and people that are happening not only in Torrington, but throughout Northwest Connecticut and the region. Here with me, as always, is my most comparable comrade, the one and only Wilbert Bowles, also known as Weebo.
I'm here, Jock.
And I would like to take this opportunity to excuse our lovely co-host this evening, Miss Melissa Crofts, who will not be able to be on the stage with us tonight, but she'll be returning next week. So in the meantime, we'll have to carry on in her absence.
Was she with Parker?
That's a very good possibility. We're going to have a talk with Parker, man. He's he's messing up the contractual agreement here. Yeah, Parker, we're coming after you. And as always, we want to take this opportunity to thank the sponsor of City Views, Toth Insurance Agency. Steve
Thanks,
Toth and the
Steve.
whole crew down there, always in our corner doing good stuff for us here at City Views. And as always, we want to thank Catherine Pezzi, who is helping us. In fact, she's moving up the scale here now. She's doing some production work for us now.
Yeah, she's busy.
So she's on top of it. Now, on tonight's show, we have two great guests who I'm just really excited about interviewing. They're artists, homemakers, community members, entrepreneurs, philanthropists. They run the whole gamut.
Wow, you're busy.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with them and helping them promote their new book entitled How to Survive a Brazilian Betrayal. Now I know you're thinking, but let me tell you, the book is fascinating and the co-authors on it are even more fascinating. So it's going to be a very, very good, just put it like this. If you're watching the show tonight, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn something about people, you're going to learn something about art, and you're going to learn something about Connecticut. So make sure you call all your friends and neighbors and tell them to catch it now on your Altice channel, Access 5, City Views. Now, the weekend in review. Weebo, what were you into this weekend?
Well, this weekend here?
Yeah.
Let's see what I've done this weekend. This weekend here, I was busy.
You don't have to be more specific, but it would help if you were a little more specific.
Oh, Saturday went down to the Gospel Fest.
Oh, that's right. Praise God Fest at Cole Park.
It was a great day, beautiful day.
Yep, nice weather.
Nice crowd, you
Yep.
know. It was nice, yeah.
I heard some very good things about Praise God Fest this year.
Yeah.
And the sound team reported to me back some of the cool bands that were participating in this year's event. So kudos. As you know, we had the vigil Friday night at Noki Gallery for the humanitarian crisis.
That's the one that was on Facebook?
On the border, yes,
Okay.
yes. It was, well, actually there's a lot of stuff going on downtown Friday. They had the car show. 5 Points had their artist talk, and then we had the vigil at Nolte Gallery. So it's always cool when you see downtown, really buzzing like that.
Now you was doing some poetry or something? Or?
Well, actually, it was a presentation. Tracy Rowe founded the event. It was a nationwide event that was bringing awareness and attention to the humanitarian crisis on the border. So in honor of that, Tracy had some musicians come in and play. She had some speakers speak. I was fortunate enough to MC the event. And I think that it was a satisfying experience for everyone that was involved because we all got to share our insights about the issue and talk to one another about how we can be proactive, not just in regards to this one issue, but how we can be proactive in putting together citizens' rights initiatives so that we can bring the fervor of these issues to our representatives in a way that they'll be compelled to take action. So I think all in all, it was quite a valuable event, and one in which I think we laid the groundwork to bring other issues that need to be addressed to the Torrington public. I was quoted in the Republican American about a statement that I had made that I got a little pushback on from some of the people on social media. I don't think they quite understood the point that I was trying to make. I was addressing, the younger people in the audience and asking them to advocate more fiercely for the issues and the causes that mean something to them. And I think people misunderstood me in terms of asking them to advocate for this particular issue. But the point that I was trying to make is it's been the lack of citizens' participation in these issues that led us to this point. This should not be happening. And it's not happening by accident. These things are a result of unintended consequences. And I, for the longest time, have always felt like there hasn't been enough citizens' actions in terms of putting together more robust voting numbers to make it not so easy for our representatives to be bought out and to be compromised by corporate lobbyists. And I think that's a huge problem that we really need to look into, and for younger people especially, because let's face it, Weibo, we on our way out, man.
Oh yeah. They got to come in and help out.
Yeah, the young people, it's going to be their world. It already is. So the more information they have and the more tools that they have to battle the challenges that are taking place within the government realm is going to work to their advantage. And they need to be reminded that the government belongs to we the people.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's easy to point the fingers and blame them. Sometimes we need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what are we doing to really affect change positively in our communities and throughout the nation. So that was part of my program for the weekend, and then how things
Did you sign
go.
autographs after or what?
Well, I was tempted.
Same.
However, my BIC number 2 wasn't quite in operable status, so didn't want to do any chicken scratch. You gotta have something legible there, where the people can read. So, nonetheless, we're going to get ready to prepare our interview for our special guest this evening, and I'm really, really excited about talking to these wonderful young women because they're quite fascinating. I had an opportunity to go through the book, How to Survive a Brazilian Betrayal, and I learned things that I was not privy to through the reading of this book. So I want you guys to stay tuned and join us right back after this break with Velya and Ehris Urban, the authors of How to Survive a Brazilian Betrayal. We'll be right back.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys know statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
And we're back with more City Views. Here tonight is our special guest. I am so thrilled and honored to bring you Ehris and Velya Urban, otherwise known as the Urban Renewal Project.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good.
We haven't had that one before. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I got lots of them up here.
Yeah, I kind of suspected that.
I know you weren't expecting that, but hey, that's okay.
Okay.
I got a couple more zingers for you too. Now, I got to tell you, ladies, I'm still kind of like, ooh, because I've never quite read a book like this before. Now, I have to admit, I'm not an avid reader, but, I dabble every now and then.
Okay, it's good to know.
But when Catherine Pezit brought you guys to us, I was, kind of like, oh boy, I got to do a little, book work, But something inside me kept urging me to say, go with it. Just go with it.
Well, we're glad you did.
Which is probably Kathy, with a megaphone outside my
Read the
belly.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, she threatened me to book them too. Said, you better book them.
Wow.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah. She's a flamethrower around here. But I got to tell you, what caught my attention more than anything else through the reading of this book was the nature of your relationship. And I know that some of the critiques from the book, talked about the special relationship between a mother and her daughter. And I was like, well, isn't all of our relationships with our mothers kind of unique? Well, I kind of learned something on that front too. Not quite. There is a special bond between mothers and daughters. And I think, Ehris, you kind of pointed out in the book how you could have great admiration and respect for your mother, but at the same time have a myriad of questions as to what is she thinking. I want you to talk a little bit about what prompted you to come to this revelation in terms of finding out who you were through your mother.
So that's something that my mom and I sort of say, that we always thought our mother-daughter relationship was normal and like everyone had this relationship.
Yes.
But from all the people that we've met, that is not true.
Very not true.
Right. But I think why we work is because my mom's personality is more kind of like larger than life and like a really big personality, and I'm more reserved, I guess. And I think why it works is because she respects my personality and I respect hers, and we don't try and change each other, but we see our strengths in each other.
Well, you have to have a certain amount of strength to go through what you went through, which the book details. Will you talk a little bit about that transformative moment when you realized that we're at the end of our rope? We have to figure out something to do.
So even now, even though it's been, what, 9 years, it's still that way. I think I said in the book, I think that was the most alone I've ever felt in my life. We were, what were the miles that we say? 4,200 miles from home, sitting alone, or the three of us, Jim, Ehris, and I, sitting on a park bench in Brazil. And I don't think I've ever felt so alone in my life, even though we were surrounded by all kinds of Brazilian activity, and realizing, okay, our dream is over, and now what? Yeah.
Even now when you say that, you know, I feel the impact of that.
Our dream was over, and I think because we were betrayed. It was the betrayal that was the, you know, that someone could do that to somebody else, yeah.
Now, I don't want you to go too much into the narrative, but just brush the surface about how that took place. And
okay, Ehris usually does as well.
Sure.
You want to do it?
So our book, my mom and I wrote it together. It came out on Mother's Day. So it follows our kind of offbeat family who lived in Bridgewater, Connecticut. My parents were there for 26 years. So we moved from there to rural Brazil, where we planned to open a dairy farm and an English school. And then we got down there, and it turned out that we had been totally betrayed and ripped off and swindled by my dad's best friend. So we had to come back to Connecticut, and then our lives fell apart even more. But really the point of it, it's not a depressing book at all, as you saw. The point of it is that you can go through something bad and then come out of it a better person and change and grow from it.
One of the things I say is that disaster can be a freaky thing of beauty, and I think if that stuff happened to us, you know, we really became different people in the process. And I like the person I am today. I'm probably the happiest I've been in my life, and if that hadn't happened, I don't know where it'd be today. Well, I don't know where it would be. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I think it speaks to the human spirit, the perseverance of the human spirit, and sometimes we're much stronger and much wiser than what we give ourselves credit for until we find ourselves in those situations that really test us and challenge us. Then we see just, you know, what we're really made of. But I want you to talk a little bit about Jose and Isabella and the part that they play in the narrative of the book.
Well, kind of lead into who they are.
Yes.
So my husband originally was in the corporate world. Then he became a contractor. Now he's back in the corporate world. And when he was a contractor, he befriended this dirt poor Brazilian guy named Jose, took him under his wing, put him into business. They worked together every day for 11 years. He almost was like a member of our family, like an uncle to the kids. We knew their family. And then, but this is not a stereotype, but what a lot of Brazilians in the United States do is they buy a farm, a small farm, sight unseen in Brazil, then they sell it, and they keep trading up, till they have the large farm they want to go back to. So with the money that we paid Jose, working for Jim, he was able to buy this humongous farm in Ponte Nova, Brazil, and moved to Brazil. And then after he had been back in Brazil for about 6 months, he called us and he said, Ehris does the accent. Do the accent. Come on.
He's like, Jim, come see my house, ride my horses, hang out with my cows.
Eat churrasco. So, you know, we early on, we knew we wanted to try living in a foreign country. And once we got to Brazil, we knew it was possible. So we decided, as Ehris said, we were going to run a dairy farm and open an English school, because I'm an English teacher. And we spent I think a lot of people think we had a midlife crisis and just, you know, did this overnight. We didn't. We spent 4 years, you know, taking Portuguese lessons, amassing our herd of cows. And it was our life for 4 years, right, to get preparing for this, yeah.
Well, it just kind of intrigues me, because the fact that you went to Brazil and started out on this venture, but yet, Ehris, you seem to still have your heartstrings in Connecticut.
That's interesting that you thought that.
Well, that's what I picked up because of the cultural comparisons that you noted in the book. I thought that was fascinating, because I didn't think that anyone at the age that you were at would be able to decipher all that as cogently as you did. What sticks out in your mind still today about the Brazilian culture and what attracted you to that?
Well, when we moved there, I was 16, then I turned 17. And I think I feel like it sounds kind of cliche, but just the people, they were so welcoming and so generous. And even our neighbors, we lived in a really, really rural part of Brazil where people didn't have much money. And the average day's salary for a man working in the fields all day, was $9. So obviously they didn't have as much money as we would consider here. But they were just so generous and so hospitable. They would offer you everything they had.
Talk about the plates.
Yeah, one of our neighbors, they invited us over for dinner, and they had us eat first because we were like the honored guest, and then they had to wash their plates, and so then they could eat because they didn't have enough plates and forks for everyone to eat at the same time. So, but they were just so generous overall.
As Jim always says, not that they didn't have matching plates. They didn't have. That's how in Brazilian homes in the country, there's no glass, so bats are swooping in, and they're up in the rafters, and we loved all that part of it. It was a dirt floor. We loved that part. That right. That wasn't what made us leave Brazil at all. Mm-hmm. No. We loved that part.
Did you love the part about the good wife?
You need to be one?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's a whole different. No, I would not want to be a colonial good wife.
Definitely not.
Talk to our audience a little bit about that.
Well, what happened was when this finally was all it was never really resolved, but we wound up coming back to Connecticut, and we needed a place to heal. So we found a foreclosed farmhouse in Woodbury, Connecticut. It was vacant for 5 years. It was in foreclosure. We made a joke offer to the bank. We never thought they'd accept, but they did. So we wound up moving into this house that we thought was built in about 1850, but to make a long story short, through a lot of discoveries that we made, it was built in 1770. Mm-hmm. So I originally was an English and history teacher, so I was always a history nut. So I don't know, for some reason, I got really obsessed with the lives of colonial women, and I came up with a pretty popular talk called The Not So Good Life of the Colonial Good Wife, how women dealt with sex and menstruation and birth control. And this talk is really just it's a talk that it's still so popular, and it led to The Not So Golden Life of the Gilded Age Wife. And there's really, we call it herstory unsanitized, because some people they don't want to talk about this stuff, which I think history should be fun. And I don't think anything in life should be boring, especially not history.
Well, especially history, because I think history is where we find those little morsels of information and data that actually kind of scopes out our pathway to the future. As the saying always goes, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Right.
So understanding history and its relevance to our individual lives and our community, I think, is something that
well, that's what I say over and over again in the talk. Eric sometimes laughs that I just love the whole full circle aspect of history,
right.
And even in the lives of colonial women, it is.
Right.
It really is. I just like that part of it. I find that interesting.
Now, I'm curious because the home that you ended up in when you came back to Connecticut, talk to our audience a little bit about that and how you kind of refocused your lives and your livelihood around this 17th century colonial house.
Well, we always say it was the house that nobody wanted because it was on the market for 5 years. And I really do think it was the house that helped us heal, because Jim, my husband, who was way more affected by the betrayal than we were, he does very well with projects.
Right.
And I like the history aspect of it. And Ehris, this is where, really, because of the house, Ehris became an herbalist. You want to talk more about this stuff?
Yeah, going through all of our junk that we went through, I saw my mom kind of coming back to life with her colonial women research, and my dad wasn't really coming back to life at all because he was really closed off, working on making money for us, which of course was important. But I saw that I could react like my dad or like my mom, and I chose my mom. So I kind of, the thing that healed me was herbalism, and especially being in an old house, you think about all the women that have come before you and have healed all kinds of ailments and everything just with herbs and natural medicine. So I started reading tons of herbal books and becoming obsessed with that, and growing an herb garden. So that really helped me.
Yeah, the house did help all three of us. Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
Well, they say that a house is just a house until you turn it into a home.
I guess
so.
so. Yep. I guess so.
But that's the other thing that kind of fascinating about about you two, where you're very cultured, but not cultured in a snobby sense of the word cultured.
Oh, phew. Yeah, I would hope not.
That'll be bad.
It's more of a deep appreciation for the culture and those things that give credence to our culture. Can you talk about that a little bit to our audience?
Well, I grew up in Bridgewater, Connecticut, which is a very small town. I think there's less than 2,000 people that live there.
Mhm.
And since I was a little kid, my parents wanted my brother and I to see that there's more to the world than just Bridgewater, where there's like one stoplight, just like not very much going on culturally. So they started taking us on trips like all around the country. Then we went internationally, and
We weren't wealthy. We just thought it was very, every school vacation we would just go out of the country because we just thought it was very important for the kids. Yeah, well,
Right.
and we loved it too. But yes, what was
So-
I forget what the question was. I always do this. I go off on tangents, but
No, it's just the appreciation of the culture that I definitely saw through Ehris's eyes in terms of just the little detailed stuff that perhaps we wouldn't notice in our everyday comings and goings, but because you have the contrast of the two different cultures, I think they might have stuck out to you a little more.
I think so. Yeah.
So I also felt like once you did return back to Connecticut, that the challenge at that point would be how you were going to overcome this betrayal. How are you going to overcome this disappointment that happened? Again, without giving too much away about the book, can you address your personal feelings on that?
my personal feelings are that when we came back to Connecticut, what we were faced with was even worse with what we were faced with in Brazil. All of us agreed with that. It was another form of betrayal. I don't. How much can we give away? It involved my parents.
Yes.
And I had to walk away from destructive people. And it's not funny, but when I wrote the book, I was so worried that people would judge me for doing that. But I just had to do it to save my own family. And I think growing up, I always kind of thought that everybody had kind of a Norman Rockwell family, and it's only after the book's been written and people shared their stories with us, I realized, no way, that's not true at all. And I have not been criticized at all for walking away from my parents. And as a matter of fact, people have actually said I've been very courageous to do it, and I had to do it for my own family. So yeah, yes. But as bad as Brazil was, that was way worse.
Now, I think the ironic thing about this, if anybody's looking at this show right now, they would probably be thinking to themselves, wow, if I read that book, I'd probably want to commit myself. But I think they'll find just the opposite, because this book it's very lighthearted in terms of how you guys illustrate how the relationship kept you going throughout all the perils that you faced. And I have to admit too, it was kind of like a tag team, because you get Ehris's chapter, then Velya, you'd come back with another chapter, then Ehris would come back with a left uppercut, and then you'd come on with a right hook, and I'm like, wow.
I don't think we really intentionally did it that way, but
But that's the way it kind of came off to me, because it was, you guys were talking both through one another's experiences, and you were also talking to one another through your experiences, but you both were giving your perspectives of the situation to the reader of the book in a way that gave you one voice. And I thought that aspect of the book was probably the most fascinating. And the fact that on one hand, as I mentioned earlier, you showed a great deal of respect and reverence for your mother, but on the other hand, it was like sometimes I don't know what she is thinking. And I thought that dynamic was carefully structured in a way that gave it that lighthearted aspect to the book that I felt was the most compelling part of the book.
Well, I'm glad it came across that way because that's how it is in real life.
No, I think anyone knows in real life. We're very, very sarcastic, joke around all the time. Yes, absolutely.
So I really want to talk a little bit more and get into this, but we're going to take a brief break.
Okay.
We're here tonight with our guests in the studio, Ehris and Velya Urban, the Urban Renewal Plan. So you guys stay tuned. We're going to be back with more and our segment, What's Cooking with Michelle Cook, right after this.
Packers, Viking, Packers, Viking, Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
The pain will not control us. It will never break us, define us, or keep us still. Because arthritis can't beat us if we beat it first. In the fight against arthritis, you need a weapon. What's yours? Visit the Arthritis Foundation at fightarthritispain.org.
Welcome to Fogel's.
Beautiful, isn't it?
You expect options everywhere else. Why not with your medical treatment? Talk with your doctor to explore all your options and find what's right for you. Visit ahrq.gov.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, according to Doug Harrell, that is. Doing a fine production job, I might add, as always. Nonetheless, we're here tonight with our two very special guests, Ehris and Velya Urban, the Urban Renewal Project, here in the studios at Altis.
Yeah.
I
know.
You're never going to get enough of me. So.
That's our next thing. Yeah. Build homes. Yeah.
Now we're discussing their latest effort, which is a book entitled "How to Survive a Brazilian Betrayal." You want to know how to survive a Brazilian betrayal? Then you got to talk to these two ladies to find out. Okay. That's why we have them on the show this evening. So welcome again to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, one thing that you did state in the book, Ehris, was that your mother has a strange proclivity for order.
Oh. I used to.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Not so much anymore after going through all the junk we went through.
Yeah?
She kind of became a better version of herself.
Well, you did state, though, that she has a very, very unique way at, let's just say, exaggerating stories to get
definitely.
people to do what she wants them to do. Okay?
Yeah, that's kind of true.
I guess that's the most politically correct way that I can put it. But can you go into detail a little bit about that?
Exaggerating stories?
Flip a coin.
Like I don't know which ones. There's so many. I don't know.
How about the Matlock story?
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so when my brother and I were little kids, We were pretty well-behaved little
They
kids,
were,
but
they were.
my mom.
They had to be.
Once in a while, I guess we would be kind of annoying. So my mom said that we had this Phantom Fury vacuum, which was this like lightweight bagless vacuum, and it came with this informative, I guess it wasn't DVD, but
whatever had
video,
back then, like a
videotape
VHS thing or something. Yes.
So whenever we acted up, my mom, who's a teacher, had us convinced that we would have to watch the whole tape and then take the quiz she prepared in advance for just such an occasion. So, which we had no idea was a total lie.
And I also threatened you guys
Yeah.
that if they misbehaved, they'd have to watch an episode of Matlock.
I had no idea what it was. I thought it was some scary, like serial killer kind of
It does
CSI
sound, it
kind of
does,
thing.
Matlock.
Yeah.
It really was just boring.
Little
Andy
did you
Griffith
know
show.
he was formerly Andy Griffith.
Like, just kind of a boring-ish show.
Yes, how in the heck can you be afraid of Andy Griffith?
I had no idea.
Although I did like his kind of his what do you call those suits? Those
Oh, like seersucker?
seersucker
Yeah.
suits. Yeah,
Yeah.
He wore those with great pride and dignity.
You wouldn't know. 'Cause you
I never had to watch an
never-
episode.
yeah,
I was never
yes.
that bad.
You never watched the episode.
No.
So you never got
the
punished.
threat was so,
Yeah.
was so scary that they never,
Oh,
yeah.
you didn't follow through on that.
I didn't have to
See?
because, yeah.
It worked.
It worked.
I know. I don't know how I would have reacted if I would have had that line of punishment waiting for me.
I always thought the naughty corner and like timeouts, that was like ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like, we didn't mess around with that kind of stuff. No,
Pin him
we
to
just-
pin him to Matlock.
Yeah.
Get him every time.
It was much scarier, yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, I would say it would. Oh my God, Mom! Another hour of Matlock. Please no.
I don't think I ever even saw it. To tell you the truth.
I guess it turned out okay, though.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I found that quite interesting.
You're the only person who's ever asked about that, I have to say.
Really?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
very, very, very in-depth reader. That's very
Well, I don't know. I guess there's certain things that just caught my eye when it came to you two. Now, one thing though, Ehris, that you poignantly brought to my attention while reading the book was your love for animals in Brazil and the kind of strange myopic scene that took place in Brazil with the animals and how they presented themselves to you. Can you talk a little bit about that to our audience?
Do you mean any specific
You mean like Jambi?
part? Or?
Well, I was going to bring that up. But,
Okay.
I thought I'd let you do that.
Okay, we have to make sure which animals we're talking about. But yeah.
So we had a mule. Her name originally was Jandaya, but we called her Jambi for jambalaya. So, well, I was the only one that she really liked that much because my dad would go out into the field, just try and call her, and she didn't come over. I would go out and give her food, so obviously she came to me and she
Right.
liked me, and she let me ride her bareback with just kind of jumping on her from the grass clumps, and she was my pal.
You was feeding it, that's why.
Yeah.
Tell the sad part of the story, though. When we knew we had to leave Brazil.
Do you want to say that?
No, you go ahead. I'll start crying. No, go ahead. You do it.
Well, we obviously after we found out we were betrayed, we found out we had to leave Brazil, and we had to say goodbye to all of our animals. And the last time that I kind of had a moment with Jambi, I was just kind of hanging out with her in the pasture, and she rubbed her head on me, and I just knew that she was such a wild animal that had such a spirit of her own. And when she came up to me on her own, I just was really touched by that.
Yeah, that is touching.
Yeah.
When you make that connection, and which is something else about the relationship that you have that I've always felt was quite fascinating, because normal situations like this could have potentially ripped a family apart.
Yeah, I
But,
agree.
and even too, you went into a little bit of detail about some of the struggles that you and your husband were going through, which I thought was very telling.
The thing with Jim was because Jim is one of those. I say old-fashioned man, but I mean, he's one of those guys where handshaking is his word, and he's a man of his word. And because as the man of the family, he felt responsible for what happened to us.
Right.
That wasn't the case at all. We were all dying to go to Brazil. I think he thinks he should have seen through Jose. That's not the case, because when we came back to the United States, people kept saying, Jose did what to Jim? So the problem was that Jim felt responsible for what happened to us, and he refused to talk about Jose, refused to talk about what happened, refused to talk about what was going on with my parents. And Ehris and I always had a very close mother-daughter relationship, but because neither one of us really had anybody else to turn to, I think it made our mother-daughter relationship, I know I'm not really answering your question, I'm going in a different way, but it made our mother-daughter relationship even closer because nobody else was emotionally available for us.
Right.
And Jim to this day is not the same person because betrayal, the monetary loss was terrible, we lost everything, but betrayal just really does a number on you. It really does, yeah.
Right.
Makes you question everything.
It does.
Yeah.
We have Michelle calling in on the line, so if we'll just have a word with her, you can ask her any questions if you'd like also. See what we have here. Michelle Cook. Okay. Did we oh, they're still on there? Are they ready for us? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, Michelle.
Good evening, sir. And how are you today?
We're doing just peachy here. We have two special guests on here with us tonight. The authors of the new book, How to Survive a Brazilian Betrayal. Authors Ehris and Velya Urban, part of the Urban Renewal Project, here in the house with us tonight.
She's here every time.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
We're good.
Michelle's there.
So, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to check in on your segment.
I know. I feel so bad that sometimes my cooking has gone up in flames.
That's okay. You're always delivering the steak and potatoes just like we like it.
Oh, I'm telling you, sometimes life does get in the way.
I happened to have an opportunity to see Billy while he was in town. He only grew another foot while he's been away.
I know. Well, he's home until the 15th of August, so you might see him again a few more times. But it is crazy. The boy is, he just keeps on growing like a weed. But he's been sick, so it's been a rough few weeks, or few days. We had him, he had 103 fever for 4.5 days. It's like, try to figure that out with a 19-year-old kid.
Well, I don't know if I'll see him again, though, because he's so tall. I don't know if I can, my neck will stretch that much.
Yeah, I think he's in a totally different atmosphere.
Pardon me?
He said he's in a different atmosphere. We're here and he's up there.
Of course. Yeah, he's way up there. Like
he is way up there.
Like
6'6" of way up there.
Yeah, like the Jolly Green Giant. I told him, I said, I knew I should have prepared you to play some basketball.
I know. The boy does hoop, though. But, high jump and track is helping his way to college, so that's beneficial.
Right. So,
things this evening. What do we got on the brain?
Well, last week we had an opportunity to speak with your colleague. Marie Horn is here with us. We had a chance to discuss a little bit about the Sharon Hospital situation that's going on. And, we also touched base a little bit about, being a freshman and understanding and learning the ropes like you once did. But talk to us now, Michelle, about the possible session that might be called by the governor.
So, actually, the governor doesn't call our session.
Okay.
Just so you know, for technicalities, the
Okay.
Speaker of the House actually calls ours. And we will be in on Monday. We will be in to do school construction, and so it's what we would call it is traditionally called the bonding package, but it's not the bonding committee. The school construction and things that come along with that districts are really relying on. So that'll take place next Monday, the 22nd. And then if the governor has vetoed any bills that we do not agree with and we have the ability to override, then we will turn around and go back and override his vetoes to ensure that the legislation stands. And I believe that there is one thing that we will go back and override. And then I know that there was some concerns out there about an optometry bill that was being threatened to veto, but I believe that the governor's office has, reconsidered his thought process on that, and he's not vetoing it, so it's not something that we have to address.
So do you know what specific legislation that you might be overturning?
Actually, I do. if you just give me 2 seconds and you could ask me some questions and I'll look it up for you. Because we did get notice from the speaker today about what the intentions are of the legislative session. I just need to find that email.
Now, the Speaker of the House, is that Nancy Wyman?
That is Joe Ehris.
Okay. Just so we know.
Yeah, so Joe Ehris is the Speaker of the House, and then Matt Ritter is our Majority Leader, and then the Minority Leader is Seamus Claridis. So those are our leaders in the House.
Okay.
And then up in the Senate, you have Marty Looney is the President Pro Tem, and then our Lieutenant Governor, Susan Bythwood, she oversees, she kind of, does the overseeing on the Senate side.
Right. Okay, this is good stuff. We need to know this so we can know the right person to throw stones at.
Well, yeah, there is that. I understand that. So my understanding, no, that's old. I gotta find it. I don't know if I have it. But there is one. It's a job labor bill that it's going. I was just looking for the bill number, but it is a labor bill that it's a really good bill, and it should not have been vetoed. So we're going to go back and we're going to override it. It's House Bill 5001.
Yes.
And it's a Department of Labor bill.
Okay. Well,
and so we will go back and override that. It's about regulations around tipped workers and things like that.
Right. Well, Michelle, I do want to commend you for your proclamation last week that you presented to Pam Pinto at ACT Natural Health and Wellness in regards to the benzodiazepine legislation. I know that people are still learning a lot of what all that entails. However, do you foresee that coming back up in the next session of the House?
So I had promised Pam when I started working with her a couple of years ago that I would continuously introduce to educate people to try to do our best to put something into law. So I had, as we were there last week, I had also promised her at the same time that I would reintroduce the bill that, that had gotten a little bit of attention but didn't get as far as we needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And with the new governor, I think a lot of things kind of gets, bogged down because it is a budgetary year, and that's what's on really everybody's mind. So I will bring that back up to the Public Health Committee again this year and see what we can, this next session starting in February, and see what we can do with it, hoping that we make a little bit more stride. But at the end of the day, most of the good work that we do is about communication and getting people to understand what something is and community awareness. And I think that Pam and her family and, her shop down there on Water Street has done yeoman's work about educating people on what benzodiazepine is and making people aware of what the reactions could be with the, the horror story that she has had to deal with her mom. And thank God that her mom is still with us and she can still, stand there and talk about it. But at the same time, the reactions and the side effects that Pam's mom had with benzos was really, really horrific. And they did not know. And so she's made a goal to make sure that everybody else is in a better position than she is.
Well, I know I've already referred about 3 people to her
yes.
because they exhibited the same types of symptoms that she shared with us in regards to her mother's issues. So it scared me enough to say, hey, I think you need to call Pam and educate yourself a little bit more on this issue to see if there's any connection points, which from my perspective point, there were. So
well, and not everybody has to, not everybody deals with or interacts with the same situations, and that's why I think we can only make ourselves better by learning for people in our community.
Correct.
In Pam's situation, by the grace of God, her mother is still here, but other people might not have had that same fortune. To ensure that it doesn't happen to somebody else is truly Pam's mission. And, the governor was gracious in giving us a proclamation. He recognizes, we've had conversations about this. He recognizes that this is a situation and that we just need to move forward on continuously trying to figure out how to ensure that this doesn't happen anymore.
Absolutely.
And it is really all about education, and then also at the same time holding other folks accountable, our insurance companies and, making sure that we communicate with our doctors and let people know that there's nothing wrong with questioning your medical professional.
Right.
Right. Because at the end of the day, even though, they are the ones that are trained to ensure that you're okay, not everybody is the same. Not everybody reacts the same way. And if people don't understand what some of the side effects are, it could be too late.
Right, right. Well, Michelle, as usual, you're always bringing us the good stuff, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to...
Hey, before we hang up, I just wanted to let you know, too, that Representative Horn and myself, we're doing an end-of-the-session wrap-up next, the 25th, from 5:30 to 7 at City Hall. So if anybody has any questions or, concerns, or they just want to come and sit down and listen at City Hall and see what we have to say about what we've done and have that end-of-the-session wrap-up, we'd love to have people, too.
That's on a Thursday?
Yes.
Now, would you mind giving us a reminder at the radio station, giving us a heads up?
I will. I'll shoot you a text, and I'll also try to stop in before that event happens and say it again for you.
Awesome. As always, Michelle, thank you so much.
No, thank you all very much. I greatly appreciate everything that you guys are doing as well.
And before you go, please acknowledge the Urban Renewal Project before you go.
Well, I believe that the Urban Renewal Project is one of the most important things that we could be doing. I am glad that they are there talking.
You got to
Like
read.
I said, it's all about communication, is it
That's
not?
it. You got to read the book.
Yes.
You got to read the book. It's hilarious.
All right, well, I got to get my hands on a copy, and I would be happy to read it.
Okay, I'm sure that they'll ship one out to you.
Yes,
we
and then we would be able to discuss what's cooking in a future episode.
We can definitely do that.
What's cooking?
Give my best to the family, Michelle. Give my best to the
And
family.
you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you guys so much for everything.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, ta-ta.
Bye.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
I'm old school like
Yeah,
that,
I can tell.
Which is probably why I related to the book the way I did.
What's that segue going to be? What?
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean no, because there was just some tradition that you guys placed in the book that I was, it had sentimental value to me.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm old school in that way.
Okay.
So, not old school, I'm a fogey.
No.
No. Now, I did want you to talk about, because you met some interesting people in your travels along the way. And I want you to talk a little bit about what you know about the relationship between Charles MacArthur and actress Helen Hayes.
So, that is my ultimate all-time most favorite romantic story. So Helen Hayes, we all know, is a legendary American actress. She eventually married Charles MacArthur, playwright. So apparently, Helen Hayes, this is before they were married, Helen Hayes went to a party. She was sitting in a chair. Ehris laughs because she thinks it's funny. She saw Charles MacArthur across the room eating peanuts out of a bag. So I guess, yes. So I guess he saw her. He was smitten right away. He came over and he poured some peanuts into her lap. And he said, "I wish they were emeralds." So then they got married, and like any young couple, you know, they had their marital things. So then on some important anniversary, I don't know if it was 25th or 30th, apparently he presented her with, he poured some emeralds into her hand, and he said, "I wish they were peanuts," you know, to show that. And if you don't get the story, you probably never built something with somebody before. So, but it's my most favorite romantic story.
Well, that's the sentiments that kind of, you know, got to me a little bit there, you know, the fact that, you know, those little minute details and whatnot, you know, they have very significant meaning going forth once you understand the context of the story and what you're dealing with.
Right.
There
no
was
one's ever asked that story. That's thank you.
But there was something else too that really got to me. It was the turtleneck sweater.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
The turtleneck sweater is, so Jim and I waited 7 years to try and have a baby. And our first baby, we didn't realize this, but it had miscarried. We didn't realize it. But I mean, we went in for a vaginal ultrasound. And because the OBGYN, she thought I was carrying twins. Turned out there weren't twins. There was a dead baby. So I was wearing a purple turtleneck sweater during the examination. Somehow we had to go down to a hospital room down below where I had to have a blood test. I always say I don't know how I got there, but Jim somehow got me there. And then this purple turtleneck sweater, for the longest time, it was folded up in my closet and had this avoidance of this purple turtleneck sweater, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I realized, well, I can't wear a purple turtleneck sweater. I never wore any kind of turtleneck sweater. Try saying purple turtleneck sweater 3 times. I never wore a turtleneck sweater again because it just signified a really, really terrible time in my life for me. But yes,
I just thought
both our lives, actually.
I just thought it was very revealing for you to bring that up in the book, and
Oh.
showed an element of vulnerability that I thought was very compelling.
Oh, thank you. That's another thing. I never knew anybody who had a miscarriage before, but after you have a miscarriage, I can't tell you how many women come up to you and say, I had a miscarriage too, and that was something that's very interesting to me.
Right,
That, just like the betrayal and some of the other things that we went through. So yeah, I found that interesting.
You know what? I'm so disappointed because we could go on. I'm telling you, I could ask you questions about this book for another hour, and I still would be fascinated by your answers. However, when Doug starts pacing back and forth across the room, and he gives me the fingers.
Yes. Yeah.
I unfortunately have to.
Well, we'll come back with the next book. How's that?
Well, and I was just going to say that because this is not your first rodeo.
No. Well,
we're going to have future rodeos.
Yes, more rodeos.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. And I'll definitely look forward to those because I want to hear how the plot thickens.
Okay, we'll find out.
Well, we do too. Let's see what's going to happen.
That's true. That's kind of our lives, right? Yeah.
But, out of the conversation, I do apologize because we failed to say anything about Mick.
Our son, Ehris's brother, my son. Mhm.
Yeah. It's like, he's a quarter
Because
of the
Mick
family.
was always kind of in. What happened was Mick went to the University of Puerto Rico and he loved it so much that he stayed there. So he was always kind of in and out of the picture.
Right.
He wasn't actually there at the exact time that we were betrayed in Brazil. And in some ways, I've just said this recently, I think it was almost kind of worse for him because he saw this happening to us and he wasn't actually there happening to him. So he was always around, but always kind of in and out. In Puerto Rico, in Brazil, in Connecticut. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So if anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, our website is groundedgoodwife.com, and we teach a bunch of hands-on holistic workshops and presentations all around Connecticut and all around the Northeast, so our events calendar's on there.
Groundedgoodwife@yahoo.com is our email, and we'd love to hear from people.
Yeah, great. Well, we'd love to have you back on the show.
Cool, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
For joining us. Want to let you know on next week's show, we will have who I refer to is our fearless leader, Mr. John Ramsey, General Manager of WAPJ Studios in Torrington, Connecticut. He's going to be on the show, and we're going to have a lot of great stuff to talk about. We have in fact, the day after he's going to be on the show, we have a homeless marathon that we're going to be running on WAPJ all day on the 24th. So we definitely want to give you the info on that. So it's been fun.
Yes, it has.
But as the proverbial clock on the wall says, we got to run.
It flew by. It really did. Yeah.
On behalf of my most comparable co-hosts, Melissa and Weibo, and of course our new producer for the show, Catherine Pezzi.
Yay!
We want to wish you all a good evening, and join us back next week. Right here, 7:30, same bat time, same bat channel, for more City Views. If it's happening in the city, you can catch it on City Views. Thanks a lot. We'll see you back.
It's about that time. City Views. What's happening in your city? City Views. Got love for your city? City Views.